this, and I just asked him, so how do we get people interested in in the mayoral candidate?
People who might be watching right now online.
Sure. So I think there's, like I said, there's this impediment because I'm not convinced that either candidate really wants lots and lots of people involved. I think they're addressing some potential voters and ignoring a lot of others. But I think to the extent that we can get people involved, there's a narrative about this city that's forming largely outside of the mayoral race. There's a story that the city is telling that isn't being told very well. And part of the item I wrote today was about how the mayor is the chief storyteller for a city. And I had a chance to sit down with, we didn't sit down, I exaggerate that. I bumped into Mark Mallory, the mayor of Cincinnati, at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and we talked for like 90 seconds. And that guy just has a magnetism, and wherever you think about the politics and stuff happening in Cincinnati, which isn't all rosy either, you talk to the guy and you're like, yeah, if you haven't been to Cincinnati, you want to go. I mean, I listened to the mayor of Missoula, Montana, talk about smart growth for 90 seconds. I was like, I might go to Missoula. That guy was cool, and I think that was the hope in a sense with Lewis Reed for a while, that, okay, this guy's dynamic, he's fun, he slaps you on the back, we tell stories. He's a great guy, but that wasn't followed up with anything that would really tell the story of the city in a way that isn't being done.
Nick, does that remind you of your conversation with Todd Swanstrom, another guy who's pretty dynamic himself, but he was talking about that we're on the verge of something here?
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about what you've seen in the city so far, and it really is about where it's going to go. And you talk about young voters, and when you talk about race, you have sort of the extreme areas, mostly north, mostly south areas where race still is an issue, but you get into the central quarter where race isn't as much of an issue, particularly with young people. It's not cool to be a racist anymore. And that's overall that's overall a good thing. And so the main thing is how these candidates are going to meld the people where race is an issue, like whether it's in the North City or whether it's in South City, meld that with the people where race isn't a thing. And you see the way particularly Mayor Slay talks he's particularly targeting people, I think, like that. When he's talking about food trucks, when he's talking about smoke-free, when he's talking about revitalizing neighborhoods or rehabbing old buildings, those are things that he's trying to appeal to that 20, 30-something set.
Lana, we haven't heard from you since the very beginning. I'm curious what's been percolating since we first talked.
Well, I'm looking at the campaign, and it's almost like it's not much of a campaign. There's more negativity than I would want to see, and some of it from the Reed camp. Slay's is more subtle, it comes in the mail, and so you have to read it to know it's negative. But that bothers me. But I really wish there were more dynamism and more vision for the city, because I think the city's come a long way. I moved here in 1987, and there are so many changes. And I get excited when I go down on Locust now to go to the fountain and see how that street has come along, or to see Morganford where the local Harvest Grocery is. I mean, that was a real pit a few years ago when I went there to buy used washing machine. But anyway, so I would like to see more excitement, more vision.
I'm going to have to talk into Joe's microphone here, which is what they told me to do because I'm not mic'd up. But one of the things that Nick talked about earlier was that, Reed has to hammer Slay on things like crime and that. But the thing is, he doesn't have enough money to really do that very effectively. Slay has over $3.5 million. Reed has a small fraction of that. And he's only spent $5,000 on TV ads, and those were only run on Charter. So as far as getting his message out, it's not going to be easy for him.
Well, and one of the tough things I think for Reed was, for example, he was attacking the mayor over some of the donors that he's gotten who also do business with the city. Well, the problem was, Reed had this list of people who've done business with the city and had donated to the mayor. And he was contending there was some sort of pay for play. Now, first I want to say this is an accusation for whoever's mayor that goes back decades. They used to do that against Vince Shamel back in the 80s. But when I asked him, because I'd already checked, I said, well, a lot of these people have also, in previous campaigns, given to you. Mm-hmm. So, and while you've been Board of Aldermen president, he said, well, the difference is I don't have an involvement in the policy like the mayor's did. But my point being that when you have an accusation like that, and then if there are people who've also given to you, in fact, one of my best interviews I talked to the head of Kwame Corporation, and because they had given previously to Reed, and the chief executive said, well, I hope Reed has saved some of that money because he's not getting a dime more from me, because he was mad at being on this list, implying that there was some connection between his business with the city and Slay. The point I'm getting at was when you attack a mayor, especially an incumbent, you've got to make sure that it's a clear line. If it gets fuzzy, or, well, these are also some of your old donors, then it becomes more complicated for you to make your case, because people are like, well, what was that about?
That gets back to